Curiosity is the way to go. Instead of being judgmental, be curious. You have that blank piece of paper? Crumple it up into a ball as if you're going to throw it across the room. Everybody got it all crumpled up? Now unfold it, flatten it out, and make it good as new. The crumpled up paper activity, which we're doing, is one of the most used demonstrations to talk about the effects of bullying. When we're bullied, when we're hurt and traumatized, we crumple up because it's safe when you curl into a ball, safer than being wide open. And even after that hurt and that trauma passes and starts to go down the road, we're like that crumpled up piece of paper. No matter how much we flatten and smooth and flatten and smooth and flatten and smooth, you're never going to get it perfectly flat again, as if it had never been crumpled in the first place. It's one of the difficult things about life is we all have to learn somehow how to carry hurt on without letting it hurt us over and over and over again and still be all crumpled up. It's not an easy thing to do, as I'm sure most of us know. There are a lot of examples of bullying in this show, Ted Lasso. And they have a lot of great lessons to teach. One of the early examples of bullying is when Coach Lasso arrives at the team. And if you don't know the premise of the show, Coach Lasso is an American college football coach who gets hired by the owner of the team, Rebecca, and you saw the woman in the dart scene, to coach the team. Not because she'd think he'd do a good job, but because she wanted him to do a bad job. Because she had just gotten divorced from that bully Rupert in the bar playing darts. And in the divorce settlement, she got the Richmond Greyhounds Premier League English football soccer team. And so to hurt her ex-husband, she wanted the team to tank and do as bad as possible. So she hired an American football coach. To her surprise, to his surprise, he's actually good at the job. Not because he knows anything about football, soccer, because he knows nothing. What he knows how to do is coach people. And the better people become and the better teammates they become, the better they're going to play. That's something he can do. They know how to play. One of the earliest instances of him showing his talent is there's a young Scottish player, Jamie Tart, who is the up-and-coming world star of soccer. Not quite hitting his prime, but he's the one everyone's watching. He's really good. And there's a towel boy named Nate. And Jamie picks on Nate. And because Jamie does it and he's the star player, it's okay for everybody else to do it. And the old grizzled veteran, Roy Kent, says it's got to stop. So he goes to Coach Ted and says, "Don't you know Jamie's bullying Nate all the time?" "Yep," says Ted, "I know." "What are you going to do about it?" Roy Kent says. And Coach Lasso says, "Nothing." And Coach said nothing on purpose, because he knew that if he stepped in as the coach to correct the problem, it's just going to pop back up again. Until those players started policing themselves about the right way to treat each other, it was never going to stick. And Roy gets really mad at the coach for not acting, but then gets it. He's the captain. This is his job. So he confronts Jamie. And he says, when you pick on Nate and people laugh, they think it's okay to keep doing it. He says, you need to stop. And it's Jamie's first lesson. And in a sense, it's one of Roy's first lessons. He learns how to be a captain. Jamie learns he's not going to get away with everything anymore just because he's good. Rupert, who you saw in the dart scene, the ex-husband who used to own the team, boy, this is a guy who's as horrible a person as you see on television in the history of television shows. He is just awful. And this is the thing, though. He always thinks he's better than everybody else. And Ted shows him that he's really not. In fact, while he's belittling people and thinking himself above people, he never gets to know people. Thinks he's hustling Ted at darts. Oh, look, I have my professional darts on me. And Ted goes, oh, look, I forgot I'm left-handed. Ted's hustling him right back because he knows how to play the bully. He knows how to twist him around and show him up. Because the only thing that's effective in stopping somebody bullying is you have to stand up to the bully. Until you do, they just keep on bullying because they get away with it. And so Ted shows him that, all the times you're going to belittle people, and those people start thinking it's something wrong with them. And we all do this. We think it's something wrong with us. But it's not. Who we are when we're mistreated usually has nothing to do with it. And instead, maybe curiosity is the way to go. Instead of being judgmental, be curious. And it's a difficult skill to practice because all of us tend to our judgment first, not our curiosity. Be curious, not judgmental. It's not a Walt Whitman quote, by the way. You don't have to go look it up. It's not. It is a Ted Lasso quote, however. And it's a great piece of wisdom. Be curious, not judgmental. We all know that bullies usually hurt others because they've been hurt. Very rarely do you find a bully who hasn't themselves been bullied pretty badly. The show goes on, we find Jamie Tart, the star player, grew up with an alcoholic father who bullied him a lot because of the substance abuse disorder. Now, this time of year, I think, is always a good time to remind everybody about bullying. People are going back to school, and we know bullying happens among children, but bullying also happens among adults. It's as likely to happen in the boardroom as the classroom. It's as likely to happen at the local gym locker room as the high school gym locker room. We all know it happens online now. Bullying even happens in church. One of the things that surprised me greatly in my years in ministry that I wasn't expecting when I went into it is how people in congregations bully each other so much. The one I hate the most is when there's a person in the congregation and something doesn't go their way, be it a vote, a decision, a policy, and they say, well, I'm not going to pledge anymore. I'm going to take my ball and go home. And I always think, wow, adult bullies. First of all, if you're giving a gift to the church and you have conditions on it, it's not a gift, it's a bribe. And second of all, I remember when I was a kid, we all knew a kid like that when we were growing up. Play the game my way, and I'm the one who owns the football, or I have the basketball hoop in my driveway. And if you don't do it my way, I'm going home. Whoever wanted to play with that kid anyway? And yet, over and over, I see this happen. I'm always astounded when it does. Another way we tend to bully people is by our own ignorance and blindness, stuff we don't even see that seems innocuous to us, but has the effect of bullying. I once served a congregation where, bless her, there was this woman who had been in charge of a fundraising program. Every year they made a holiday recipe cookbook, and they were in their 20-something year doing this. And the same woman had been the chairperson of this forever, since it started. And every fall, she would get up in announcements and announce for people to come help her. And by mid-October, when they were starting to near the deadline of having to get it to the printer, she was doing it by herself again. And what I came to find out, and what people found out when they offered to help, is their help and creativity and input really weren't wanted. Their hands and running errands were. But don't dare think about changing anything about the way this person had done this for 20-something years. She wasn't doing anything intentionally to hurt anybody. And she wasn't. And yet people got hurt by feeling excluded, and it hurt the congregation by not being able to continually develop and better the project. Be curious, not judgmental. Why do we do the things we do? Are they the best for us? Asking good questions is far more important than having all the answers. Far more important. You saw one of the clips was about total football. Coach Beard, the assistant coach there, is telling everybody about how the Netherlands sprung a new tactic on everybody in the World Cup one year and advanced all the way to the final, where unfortunately they lost to host country Germany, but they had really ignited the imagination of soccer fans around the world with their new style of play. And there's a scene where Ted is sitting in an American barbecue restaurant in England because he's homesick, right? And he has this vision about the Chicago Bulls playing a triangle offense and all this different stuff that's similar to total football. So he thinks he invented it. And he comes and tells all the assistant coaches, like, oh, yeah, that's total football. Oh, I thought I invented that. But they try it and they start having success. And what total football is about improvisation, about running with what's presented and doing the best you can with it. And it's a fascinating way to look at life and the spiritual life. In her book, God, Improv, and the Art of Living, Marianne McKibben Dana, a Presbyterian minister, reflects on the yes and style mechanic of improv theater and how it's a great approach to the spiritual life and to living a good life in general. Because it's all about rolling with what happens and doing the best you can with it. And if you don't know the yes and property of improv, it's whatever happens, you go, yep, and then keep playing the scene. Somebody starts the scene and says, oh my God, what a beautiful purple sky we have today. The thing you don't say is, no, the sky's not purple. Don't harsh my mellow, man. You got to go with it. Oh yeah, well, ever since that climate control thing happened, it's been different colors every week. You roll with the scene, because once you cut it off, it can't go anywhere else. We need to live like that, she says in the book. We need to learn to roll with what comes our way. And it's not about celebrating a yes and, oh, I got diagnosed with a disease. Oh, I was in a car accident. Oh, I didn't get into my favorite college. It's not about, oh, let's celebrate some bad thing. That's not what it's about. It's about, okay, this happened. Yes. And now what am I going to do about it? How am I going to do it the best I can? Where's my help? Where's my resources? How can I be curious, not judgmental about what's happening to me? Yes, and, yes, and, yes, and. One of the things Ted runs into in the show is he has panic attacks, horrible anxiety. One causes him to run out on the team in the final minutes of an important, crucial, close game. And he's not there. So at that point, he brings in a team therapist, and he's the first patient. But over time, the therapist starts helping all the players. And lo and behold, as they work on themselves, they get to be better players, not just better people, and the team gets better. Coach knows how to coach people. He may not know anything about soccer, but he knows people. And one of the most fascinating things about this program is it really is about wholesomeness, how we do our best living in a complex and difficult world. Nothing is always perfect. It's very true to life. There's ups, there's downs, there's tragedies, there's successes and celebrations. And you see that total football play out in all the characters' lives. Things happen to the players they never expect, and they yes and. The team's publicist, Keely, has relationships with two of the star players, and they end, and she finds herself in a relationship with a woman, and she's like, oh, look at that. Yes and. Just keep going. Ted finds himself in a strange country coaching a strange sport. His whole response is, yes, and okay, here I go. I don't know anything about soccer, but I'm going to do what I can do. One of the things that they encounter is they get the world's best player, better than Jamie Tart. He's called Zada, and he's like Messi, Pele, right? He's the gift of all soccer players. Best one in the world. And the team really doesn't do any better with him. He's weird and eccentric, and some of the players are starstruck by him, and some are jealous of him. It doesn't. When he leaves, they end up doing great. They get the world's best player, and they do worse. Because all of a sudden they stopped yes and. They were just waiting on him to do it all. Or play around him or coach to his style. Everybody did it. But when he's gone, they go back to their thing and it works much better. Yes and. Sometimes it's not about being the best at something. It's about being the right fit. It's like our Unitarian Universalism. All are welcome. Not everyone is always a good fit. Are people like me old enough to remember the 1980 Olympic hockey team? So when this happens in Ted Lasso, I thought of the 1980 Olympic hockey team because the story of that team coming together is the coach was a college coach. He brings all the best college players in the country together, and they're supposed to have like a week-long tryout. After day one, he sends them all home. And the selection committee is really ticked off at him. And his assistant coach tries to talk some sense into him. He says, no, this has to go on for another week. The committee's really upset at you. What are you going to do? How do you know you're going to have the best players? And he tells them, I'm not looking for the best players. I'm looking for the right ones. And that's what Coach Lasso is really good at. He's not looking for everybody whose skills may be the best. He's looking for who's the right fit to be a team player for this team. From the front office to the towel boy. He's a great coach. He knows nothing about soccer, but he's a great coach. Have you ever heard of the Japanese art of kintsugi? Kintsugi is that cool thing, and you've probably seen it if you don't recognize the name, where broken pottery is put back together with gold. So you take this ruined piece of art and you make a new piece of art with it, using its damage to help create the next beautiful thing. When you came in this morning, you got an order of service, and somewhere in some orders of service is a piece of yellow construction paper. If you have a piece of yellow construction paper in your order of service, I invite you to either come on up or pass it off to someone else who's willing to come up and join all the other people with the pieces of paper up here and use the tape and kintsugi that sucker back together. Go ahead. Awesome. Thank you. Ta-da. Early in the series, Ted writes believe on a piece of paper and sticks up in the locker room to tell everybody to believe in themselves. Well, he hurts one of the guys, Nate, the towel boy, and Nate gets really mad and rips the sign down and rips it up. Later, near the end of the series, as Ted tells him, you don't need the sign. It's what the sign stands for. And what he finds out is a bunch of the players had taken some of the broken pieces and kept it with them in their wallets, in their locker. And they all bring it back and put it together and put it up at the end. Kintsugi is about realizing that what you consider broken and not good enough and ruined is still a whole and gorgeous and beautiful work of art. You. It's why Ted was such a successful coach. That's what he gave to people. I don't care how you came in here. We're going to take gold and put you back together again. when Ted starts his job coaching, he's supposed to fail. He's good at it. Surprise, surprise. And all of a sudden, the owner who wanted him to fail now wants him to succeed. And she starts to heal her life from the divorce. He starts to heal his life from the divorce. People start getting healed all through the organization. They're putting themselves back together with Coach Lasso Gold. It's like he gives them all the permission to be hurt and messed up and be okay anyway. There's one player who's gay and is really afraid of coming out. And when he does come out to the team, one of the other players gets really mad at him. And the gay player thinks the other guy's mad because he's gay. And he's not. The other player's mad because the gay player didn't trust him enough to tell him, thought he would be mad. And they have to put themselves back together in a little kintsugi. They take what's gone off and they put it back together stronger. The team is like this too. The towel boy, Nate, is hurt by Coach Ted and he abandons him and he gets hired as a coach by Rupert's now other team that he owns.
And now you can't go to work.
Coach? Wow, that's never happened before. And Nate doesn't do any good at coaching the other team because Rupert wants him to be a mean coach and do nasty things. And that's not who Nate is. He's a kind, good-hearted guy at heart. So he quits. And eventually, Coach Beard, the assistant who talked about total football, comes to his apartment. And Coach Beard is the one who's most angry at Nate for abandoning Ted. And what we learn is that Coach Beard is with Ted because Coach Beard got sent to prison for drugs. And when he got out, his family didn't want anything to do with him. And Ted took him in, slept on Ted's sofa. And Coach Beard says, and I repaid him by stealing his car. And then Ted went to the police and convinced the police he had given the car to Coach Beard. And Coach Beard tells Nate this whole story and says, no, we want you to come back. We give you the second chance. What you do with it is up to you. We're all second chance people. Every single one of us who walks in the door. Repair is part of the history of an object and a person. It's not something to disguise. Ted's way, the Richmond Greyhound way, is realizing that we're all broken and repaired, and we all tend to deny we're broken and have been repaired or in need of repair. And sometimes we get counseling, and sometimes we do some healing, and sometimes we try to hide it. This is the place, church, congregation, your faith community. Our theologian, James Luther Adams, said church is the place where we go to practice being human. We don't expect you to be perfect at it here. We count on you being bad at it sometimes, just like the rest of us. This should be a place, this community should be a place where we let the crack show. As Leonard Cohen taught us, there's a crack in everything. It's how the light gets in. It's how the gold has a place to show up and fit itself in. Show our cracks, our breaks. It's okay to be kintsugi. It's beautiful. This community, this room, this sanctuary, this place is like Coach Ted's locker room, where what we offer here more than anything else is a little bit of kintsugi for all the little broken pieces in all of us. Be curious, not judgmental. Thanks a lot for watching this video. It would help me out a great deal if you liked the video to give it a big thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, share this video with others, maybe ring that notification bell so you can be informed when we put out other videos like this. Check out my website and blog at TonyLorenzen.com for even more resources that will open your mind, touch your heart, and inspire your spirit.